Hello, hello. How is everybody this lovely Sunday? Make it a little brighter in here. That a little better? I hope so. It feels a little better to me. Hi, Sonia. Hi, Mark. How is everybody today? We're going to talk shop about a few of the things related to the read along before we get into the deep discussion. Hey, girl, hey. I am doing well. So let's talk about some of the mechanics of the fly along, and then we'll jump into the discussions about volumes 1 through 5. Hello, goodbye. So real quick, is one volume a week a good pace? Is it too much? Is it too little? I don't want to overwhelm anybody with this read along. I just want it to be fun, but I don't want it to take 3 years to do. So this is why I'm kind of thinking one a week is the good pace. That takes us about a year to get through the whole series. And for me, it felt like a decent pace, but I also am basically reading a volume a day, not a volume a week, like some people. So I just want to make sure I'm not overwhelming anybody. So tell me how the pace of the readathon or the read along is feeling to you. It is high. So hi. I'm going to turn off my overhead fan, so I will be back in like 2 seconds. Okay. Enjoying the one volume a week allows me to read other manga alongside. Okay. That's kind of how I feel as well. Fallen behind, but life has been chaotic. Usually I can read a volume a day, so I think the pacing is good. Okay. So good to know that everybody's okay with the pacing. The other thing is, do you think we should be doing live streams more often, like 4 instead of 5? Or is 5 a good pace? Because where there's 45 volumes, that would mean 9 live shows over the course of the series. So I just felt like that felt like the right pace. So if 5 feels like too much before a live show, tell me. Because I think that's the other thing I'm concerned about. And okay to do one volume a week. Perfect. Okay. So with that said, let's kind of dive in to this. Since this is the first one, I decided to kind of do it myself so I could do some of the shop related kind of stuff. In future live shows, we will have multiple people here and it will be a bigger discussion. So in volumes 1 through 5, we get through a good chunk. If you're watching the anime, we basically get through a good chunk of season 1. Like we get easily into episode 17 or 18. I think 18 by the time volume 5 finishes. Okay, good. I think so too. So this is a good chunk of content for us to kind of dissect and discuss. So let's focus on what's in volume 1 first. Like the first episode of the anime all takes place in the first chapter. So it's one of those things where I feel like the anime gives the story a bit of room to breathe in comparison to the manga. But at the same time, I almost wonder if it takes too much time to kind of, yeah. So, yes. Anyways, in the first chapter, obviously, we have the meeting of our two main characters, which are Hinata and Kageyama. They meet on opposite sides of the net, and they come from very different backgrounds when it comes to volleyball. And by the end of chapter 1, they're on the same team, and they don't like that idea. And they start this rivalry in this first chapter that continues throughout their course, throughout the course of their high school careers, essentially. Mild spoiler, but not really. They do become teammates, but they still have this small rivalry between them. They always have to try to one-up one another. And I think it's a really fun way to come at competitiveness, because it's okay to be competitive, but you know, when it takes over your life, it can be a problem. Or if you take it too seriously, or you make somebody out to be the bad guy, then that's when competition can get messy and icky. So moving on into their first day in the volleyball club, because they are fighting in front of their senpais and in front of the vice principal, an incident happens where the vice principal's toupee is knocked off his head, which is hilarious, both in the manga and in the anime. That moment is iconic. It is so much fun. And from there, these two are banned from the gym, and they have to learn how to work together. So they think they can outsmart their senpais by, you know, coming and challenging them to a match. And through that, they decide to allow them to, you know, have a specific goal behind a normal scrimmage that the team would have. And with that, and the way that Daichi, the captain, who I love Daichi. Daichi is one of my favorite characters in this series for multiple reasons, and we'll get to more of that later. But I adore Daichi. Daichi is fantastic. Right? It's so hilarious. I loved it so entirely much. It's just so great. So they yes, Daichi. Daichi is one of the best boys in the series. We're gonna get to my best boy here in a minute. But right now, like at this point, Daichi was my man. I loved Daichi. So the other person that we get to know quite a bit in this first volume due to circumstances is Tanaka. Tanaka is the quote-unquote senpai put in charge of these two hooligans because he's a hooligan himself, and he's not afraid to like smack them around and get them in line and to help them. But he also understands that both of them have different motivations. And we also get to know Sugawara, the, you know, vice captain of the team. And Sugawara is also known in the Haikyu community as Sugamama, because he kind of is like the motherly character for this team. Daichi's the dad and Sugawara's the mom, is how people love to think of them. And it's kind of how they work, because Daichi's not afraid to lay down the law, but Sugawara loves to like come in and kind of clean up the mess that Daichi leaves behind sometimes to make sure that everybody's motivation is still high. And that's something I love about Sugawara. And yes, Tanaka. I love Tanaka. He is my extra loud himbo, and he is just one of my favorites. Like, forever, I love Tanaka, and he's so good. I love him a whole lot. So, we also get to know the other first years in this first volume, which are Tsukishima and why did his name just leave me? Where did my brain go? Yamaguchi. But I never call him Yamaguchi. What's his name? Tadashi. Tadashi. My Tadashi boy. I love Tadashi. And I think it's easier to understand later in the series, so I'm not going to spoil why I love Tadashi so much. It's more in season 2 you fall in love with Tadashi. for me. But Tadashi is adorable. I don't know why his name just left me. I think I'm tired still. I woke up very late today. So we get to know them as well. Tsukishima is also known as Salty Shima for a reason. He is the person who loves to egg people on and poke them and just try to get a reaction out of them. And I honestly love Tsukishima. Tsukishima, again, that's another one where like season 2 of the anime is where you really fall in love with Suki. Suki is just kind of the surly grumpy boy at this point. And like once you guys hit certain volumes, Suki's going to be fantastic. I think we'll hit one of those volumes in the next live show. So very, very excited about that. But that's kind of a wrap up on the first volume. So let's move into volume 2. So in this one is where the main scrimmage between the first years, and then we've got Daichi and Tanaka on opposite sides of the net as well. You didn't like Suki? Suki grows on you. He grows on you a lot. Look at how he treats Tadashi in a lot of ways, and you'll understand Suki a bit more. He's very much grumpy on the outside, like marshmallow on the inside, and Suki's great. So in this one, the scrimmage goes down, and there's a magical moment that happens kind of on accident where Kageyama has some insecurities from his previous team. And so Tanaka and Hinata both kind of have a moment where they get to reassure Kageyama that he's not necessarily doing anything wrong. And I loved that moment so much for multiple reasons. Not only does it create the 1-2 combo that is Hinata and Kageyama, yeah, their backgrounds are all amazing. It's so much fun. So yes, not only do we get to know the 1-2 combo that is Hinata and Kageyama through this moment, we also get to see the power of teamwork and working as a team, which is something that's kind of a running theme throughout the entirety of this series. And it is truly so much fun because you get to see everybody kind of warm up to one another, and you get to see the small rivalries between them, and you get to see kind of the tail end of the match early on in this volume. And you also get to see the competitive side of Tsukishima come out, where, he acts very nonchalant and like he doesn't care. But, by the end of the match, he's like thrown off his sweater, he's sweaty, and he looks like he had a good time because he really does enjoy the sport. But there are reasons for things, and I want to explain them, but I can't because there's spoilers. And so, yes, we're not going to spoil things. But yeah, they all, at the end of the scrimmage, they all get their gear and all this kind of stuff, and they start to set up the team. And then they also get an invitation to go scrimmage at a rival high school, which is Seijo. One thing about the translation is I don't love there's a translation versus localization discussion that we'll have to have at some point. That might be a bonus live show because I've wanted to talk about this for a long time, because there's some direct translations here that don't work so well, but they just localized those things in the anime and that worked better. And I know that the translation was not directly related to what was happening in the anime. So I wish they would have gotten together a little bit on that, but that's a discussion for another day. But yes, this is where Hinata becomes the greatest decoy, and Kageyama has to face his former teammates because they are now rivals on opposite sides of the net. And we get to know Seijo, and we get to know why this rivalry is even a thing. And we see Hinata being very nervous. We see him throw up all over Tanaka because he's so nervous. And yes, I really adore the rivalry that forms between these two teams. And there's a specific character that we get to know in volume 2, and it is Oikawa. Oikawa is the best rival to have for this team and these characters. And I kind of think of him as like the boss, like the main boss that they have to like fight. Yes, very much, Mark. Because Oikawa truly is someone that Kageyama especially looks up to. And as Hinata watches him play, he starts to look up to Oikawa as well. So Oikawa becomes like the benchmark that they want to reach. And Oikawa doesn't feel like he does enough either. But that's a discussion for another day because spoilers, and I need to stop spoiling things. Anyway, I love this. I love this so much. And right at the end of the volume, we meet one of my favorite characters in the entire series, which is Nishinoya. Nishinoya is a special being that I love so much. And we're going to move on to volume 3 so we can talk more about Nishinoya and my favorite best boy. Now, if you have anything to say, please like jump in and participate in this conversation. I know I'm just kind of word vomiting all of my thoughts at you guys for this first one, but I really want to know what you guys think. So I'm going to pause for a second, give you guys a chance to like respond to what I've talked about so far. And yes, I know Mark's been popping in and I've been trying to put them all up. So yes, please hop in and join the conversation, because we still have 3 more volumes to talk about. And we basically covered, you played the same position as Oikawa. I didn't know you played volleyball. How did I not know this in all our like discussions? By the way, y'all, if you don't know, Mark designed all of our amazing images for this fly along. So make sure you give a special shout out to Marg, and she's fantastic. We love her. It's true. The Nishinoya Tanaka combo is one of my favorite duos in this series, but Nishinoya has a combo with somebody else that we're going to talk about in a minute that I love as well. Yes, Nissan. Nishi. We love Nishi. Nishi's here on the cover, and I'm so glad he got his own cover. He deserves his own cover. Because Nishi is amazing. I would do the same thing, pinpoint the weaknesses and exploit. Ace, my specialty was serving. Nice. So yes, Nishinoya is the libero or the digger. So essentially, he's the one who gets down on the ground and makes sure the ball doesn't touch the floor. I love Nishinoya. Nishinoya is amazing. He is best boy. And he is the shortest member of Kurasano, and that makes Hinata feel better because he's extra short. And he wants to be like the tiny giant. That's amazing. I love that. But there's something that happened in a previous tournament for the main team that caused Nishinoya to get suspended and another character, Asahi, to kind of not come back to practice. And Asahi is one of my favorite boys ever. Asahi is amazing. He is truly, I'm trying to find a good image here in the volume of him. But he is tall, he is big, he is the ace. And there's a struggle. There's a huge struggle for him because he feels all the pressure to make sure that they score. And he got shut down by a particular team that we'll see again before the discussion is out. And he truly has to face his demons. Yeah. I'm 5'2", so I totally get it. Nishi and I are the same height. So yeah, I love this volume. And I'm going to take a minute to talk specifically about this volume. Because at this point, we're introduced to 3 new main characters. We're introduced to Nishinoya, we're introduced to Asahi, and we're also introduced to Coach Yukai, who, because they haven't really had a solid coach, but their school advisor has been hunting for a coach for a long time, and he finally convinces Coach Yukai to come and even take a look at the team, because they're going to face their rivals, like old school rivals. We're going to talk about them in the next volume more, but So he invites his like local team of his buddies to come and scrimmage with the team so you can kind of get a feel for who they are and what they do and the dynamic of the team. And through that, they're short some members on the coach's side. And so he asks to borrow a setter, and Nishinoya plays over there because Nishi refuses to play with the Kurasuno team until Asahi is back. And yes, Asahi is best boy. I love him so much. And this is really kind of the moment where I got sold on this series, is this dynamic between these three. So we see this nostalgic coach come in, and he like doesn't expect anything good out of this team. And he sees the dynamics kind of off. Asahi's been kind of flirting around with coming back to practice, and he actually shows up at practice the day that the coach is there. So he's like, late on the coach's first day? What's your name? What position do you play? And so anyways, we end up with this moment where Sugawara, Nishinoya, and Asahi are on the opposite side of the net of the rest of the Kurasuno team. And this happens for a really interesting reason, because Sugawara feels a lot of guilt over the same game that Asahi feels guilt for, and so does Nishinoya. These three feel so much guilt about this one game. And so this is kind of their little redemption arc together. And we see that they needed to come back together and just have a conversation, but Asahi blocked them out for a long time because of his own insecurities and anxieties. And we see this moment where Asahi realizes that he's not alone on the court. And just thinking about it, it gives me chills, makes me want to cry, because this is the moment I fell in love with this series. This is when I knew this series was truly going to be about characters more than the sport. And Asahi is me in so many ways. I'm an anxious little bean who thinks too hard about things. And Asahi does the same. And not only does Asahi look like someone I would have dated in high school, because yes, he's a handsome young man, but Asahi is the kind of person that I am. And I really love him for so many reasons. And the moment in the anime is particularly powerful. The way they edited things together and the way that you see Asahi's voice change, you see him truly come into himself, that though on page it's powerful, you see Asahi encouraged not only by the people that, you know, that were trying to lift him up, but you also see that from the new players on the other side of the net. And Tanaka in the anime in particular is hilarious through this whole thing. And this moment where Asahi comes into his own, faces his demons, and lands a hit because he is the ace, gives me chills every time. Every time. And then you see these two cheeky boys who have done their part, feeling good about their ace being back. And like I say, this is the moment I fell in love with the series. And then, you know, we have our advisor down here freaking out because he's a new advisor, so he hasn't really seen Asahi play at all. And it's fantastic. And that's when you see the coach truly realize he's got weapons with this team. And it's fantastic. Me too, Shay. That's why I relate to him. I like how other players see him as intimidating, but he's really just a marshmallow. It's so true. Asahi in particular, because he's very tall, very broad. He's got long hair. He's got some facial hair. He looks like this big, intimidating guy, especially in Japanese culture, because like facial hair is just intimidating and like you're a thug or whatever. And he just thinks he looks cool. But like everyone's super intimidated by this marshmallow of a man, and I love him. I love him so much. So yes, like this whole thing was great. And then Asahi's back in his element. Hinata's watching him because he wants to be the ace, and he gets nailed in the face by a ball from Asahi. And Asahi freaking out because he's such a marshmallow was so fun. Yes, and yes, they did snag Coach Yukai, and I love him so much. But yeah, this whole segment where they get to know Asahi was absolutely fantastic. And then we see training camp. So they go and do a like spring break training essentially. And at the end of, they call it Golden Week. At the end of Golden Week, they have a game scheduled with Nekoma, which is a high school from Tokyo that has had a long-standing rivalry with Karasuno because the old coaches were friends, and that's what brought Coach Yukai back. Or the young Coach Yukai, I should say, to the team. And we get a moment in the end of volume 3 where this character, Kenma, runs in to Hinata, and they kind of have this moment where they connect and bond, and over volleyball in particular. And Kenma knows that he'll be on the other side of the net, but Hinata has no idea. And so you see them face each other across the net, and it's absolutely fantastic. And you see that these teams are very similar in lots of ways, and you see this new rivalry bloom, and it is amazing. I love it so much. They scrimmage together, they have a ton of fun, and they build their own rivalry. They're not riding on the coattails of the old rivalry anymore. They have their own, and it's fantastic. Kuro is another character that I absolutely love, and we'll see him lots throughout the series. We see all of Nekoma quite a bit, and he is Tanaka on Nekoma's team, and he's basically just Tanaka with a mohawk. And I love their himbo romance so much. And the way that they all fawn over their female manager is amazing. And I just had a great time getting to know the Nekoma characters. Yeah, Yamamoto and Tanaka are are really just the same brand of himbo, and they are such the same human that I love it so much. Yes, I forgot they are on the back cover, and because they are so similar, and they're very similar on the court as well. And so not only are they similar on the court, they're similar off the court, and it's the best. I love them so much. And yes, Yamamoto and Tanaka are seriously one of the best like bromances you could say in this series, because their friendship is beyond amazing. And Nishinoya's added element to their friendship later is fantastic. Top notch. Absolutely love. So, with all of that said, we're going to say goodbye to Nekoma for now. But Kenma is one of the best characters, and the friendship and camaraderie that's built between Kenma and Hinata is really fantastic as well. So we'll see Kenma quite a bit. He gets a few covers. Like, I love Kenma. All right. Time for one of the other moments that sold me on this series. And so we are now headed to the tournament. But first, we need to talk about Kyoko, who personally takes a moment to do something for the team. She finds this old banner from the glory days, and she gets it washed and cleaned and hangs it up to support these guys. And she tells them good luck, and all the old team, like, they bawl and they freak out because Kyoko has never gone so far for the team, but she wants to support them in her own way. She's a third year as well, and is a third year with Sugawara. And they're all extra hyped because Kyoko put in the effort. And Kyoko's such a cute, sweet manager. I really love her. And then on the first day of the tournament, Daichi gets reacquainted with an old teammate. The first team that they're up against is a team that one of his friends from his junior high team, or middle school team, ended up on. And we see that Seijo comes to watch the match and see what happens. And everybody's hyped and ready to go. And Karasuno's a more competitive team than the team that Daichi's friend ends up on. And they take this moment. They also click over to the girls' volleyball team for Karasuno because they're less competitive, I guess you would say, than the Karasuno team. And in that moment, we kind of have these two games woven together on page. Like you see them flip back and forth. And obviously the boys Karasuno team wins. The girls team loses. And so we see this moment where the mangaka took the time to acknowledge those who lose in these tournaments in the first round, just like Hinata did. And at the end of their game, Hinata just basically starts to cry because he's so excited. Hi, Breezy. So Hinata's so excited that he gets to keep playing that he gets emotional, and it makes other people emotional, and it's amazing and adorable. But the mangaka takes this moment to kind of montage and acknowledge all of the teams who lost first. And you see this moment where Hinata relates to how they're feeling, because in the first volume, that was him. And so he knows that feeling. He knows both feelings now. He knows the feeling of being the first to leave the court, and he knows the feeling of getting to stay. And it's just such a beautiful moment. Another one, I think that's where the anime thrives a little bit more, just because they were able to emotionally build it a little bit more than they could on page. But I do still think it's beautiful and stunning in the manga because we see this. And it does so many things to me. Like, this moment is truly special. And from there, we move on to, yes, I completely agree. Like, the emotional impact of this volume and volume 3 are really what sold me on the series in so many ways. Because you could see it was more about the characters than the sport, though the sport is woven to tell their stories even better. And it is just, it's so good. So good. I'm dying. So yes, from there, they say they're winning the next one too, and they go up against Date Tech. Now, this is a very crucial moment for Asahi and Noya because they have to face the team that blocked them out before. So this is the team that they were up against before. They're known as the Iron Wall of Date Tech. And this big guy here, he is a big player in the Iron Wall. He is a silent giant, I would say, and he's really quite gentle, except when he's on the court. I really adore him. They love to play with their rivalry, and the team doesn't know how they're going to react to this Date Tech game, win or lose. And so we move into the Date Tech game. We only get about halfway through, and we get to know both Date Tech and Karasuno better through this match. And I'm really excited to keep going with the Date Tech match because, like I say, we only get about halfway through. We don't get to the end of the match. But we do see the moment where Asahi gets his moment to shine. He sees the other side of the wall, and you see him fully break through that slump that he had because of Date Tech. And it just makes me love Asahi all the more. Oh, I really do adore him. So that's kind of the quick sum up of everything that happened in these volumes. So yes, do tell me some of your favorite moments, because I know I've talked on some of mine, but I haven't let you guys really say much about yours. So tell me your favorite moments from these first 5 volumes / 16, 17. Yes. I didn't even talk about that. So Tadashi, my little precious bean, after the scrimmage with the other team, he goes to this mini mart essentially that this guy named Shimada owns / works at, and because he doesn't feel like he has a lot to contribute to the team. So he wants to learn how to do a jump float serve. And so he goes and asks this alumni who did a jump float at the scrimmage game that they had played, asking him to teach him. And this is when Tadashi starts to kind of get his own backbone, because he has been kind of just tagging along with Suki for a long time. We'll get more context on that in future volumes. But this moment is a moment where Tadashi starts to develop on his own, and it's really important for his character, and it's just so good. Like, I cannot wait for the true Tadashi moment, which will come in, like, not the next live show, but the one after that. So I'm really, really excited for Tadashi to start his journey for sure. And Suki is still just Suki in that moment, and I can't wait for you guys to get to know the best parts of Suki. Like, early on, he's just a grumpy, curmudgeon little teenage boy, but I still adore him, and I adore his journey. What other moments stood out to you that we haven't talked about? Did we cover everything? Is that it? If we did, that's totally cool. I just want to make sure we've talked about everything everybody wants to talk about. The art style in this, I haven't even touched on, but I do enjoy the art style. The mangaka did a lot with eyes in this particular series that adds a lot of power to the series. You see reflections of eyes, you see perspective changes, and it's absolutely stunning and absolutely fantastic. I hope we get more from this mangaka soon, because I've really, really enjoyed the artistic value that they add to the story. Okay, well, it looks like most people are kind of dropping off, so I think we'll wrap this up for today. Thank you all so much for joining in. We'll be discussing volume 6 through 10 in 5 weeks. Okay, first time that Hinata made contact with Suki's set. Yeah, and then we found out from the other characters that their eyes were closed. Yeah, that their powerhouse moment is truly amazing. And the fact that Daichi even noticed that his eyes were closed from when he left the floor to when he hit the ball was fantastic. You wonder why Kenma doesn't like it that much? That comes into play later. So I will not say anything now, because I am more than prone to spoiling. So you'll get to know Kenma better. Like, it's hard. I can't say anything without spoiling things. So I will not say anything here, but you'll learn more about Kenma and why he is the way he is soon. So, but yeah. So yes, thank you all for coming. I had such a great time discussing it with you all. The next live show, I will have other people joining the live show, so it won't be just me rattling at you. It'll be more of an open discussion, I think. And yeah, he's totally the opposite of Kageyama for sure. And yes, I'm glad you had fun. And thank you all again so much. Remember that there is the Discord, so you can discuss anything you want over there as well. And I try to group them together. So even if you are behind, you can continue to discuss in the volume 1 through 5 discussion. And yeah, we'll move forward into the volumes 6 through 10. I'll add the chat in the Discord. When did I say the next live was? I haven't scheduled it yet, but we do it about every 5 weeks. So it'll be in like early to mid-March if we're going 5 weeks. So it'll be soon. And as soon as I have the dates scheduled, I will let everybody know. And I'm so excited that y'all are having the best time. Have a great Sunday, everybody. Bye.